Fabula Ultima is continuing to grow and grow. And I'm getting to a point where I'm getting a lot of awesome feedback on my comments and running across new faces on other platforms like TikTok and Instagram as far as them showcasing their experiences or excitement to try Fabula Ultima. But the thing I'm continually seeing is it's hard to find a small group of friends that are wanting to try this game in the close proximity. Now, of course, there's plenty of people that do, and that's the way I always recommend. If you can have a group of people you trust and enjoy at your gaming table in person, nothing beats that. However, my best friends, the people I enjoy playing around, are in a proximity that does not make that real. So, what do we do? Well, now we've come to the existence of VTTs, virtual tabletops, and that is what this video is going to be about today. In this session of How to Fabula Ultima, I'm going to show you how I run my game through Foundry VTT. Now, as always, before I start my videos, I just want to give a shout out to the people that are giving me their likes, their views, and subscribing to my channel. And it's continuing to grow every time I post one out. And I'm so excited to always see feedback anytime I log into my account to see who has taken intrigue, who has put insight, and just see this community grow. So if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. You can just click the subscribe button at the below. It helps me monumentally to know people's interest and helps the algorithm push me out to more people. So with that being said, let's get back to the topic at hand, me running it through Foundry VTT. As we hop into the showcase, there's a couple of things I want to say before we get started. First off, the intent of this video is to show people that have some understanding or at least interest in running Fabula Ultima through Foundry VTT, showing a little bit of the setups, the modules I run, and just kind of giving a little bit of a overview of the system in Foundry VTT. This video is not by intent to show how to start from scratch and work Foundry VTT and navigate everything it has. If you are completely new to Foundry VTT, I highly recommend just going to YouTube, looking up Foundry VTT 2025, and check the reviews, people's recommendations, how to set up a game for the first time, and kind of learn from your own experiences. Because I've been using Foundry VTT now for 6 years, and I think it's bar none the best VTT if you want a lot of options and installments to make your game more engaging for the online community. So that being said, we're going to hop over to my layout and we're going to just kind of start from scratch and I'll show you what we got. Okay, we've got my setup for Foundry VTT. I'm just looking at the initial start screen of when you log into the first time. And I'm going to now kind of transfer over to me being just kind of a live style of presentation. I'm probably going to stutter, stumble, and a little bit of that where I'm not looking into editing too much because I want to just show the fluidity of how I set this up. But we're going to go ahead and start with logging into your main client here. It is worth noting that Foundry VTT also has cloud services as well. If your PC isn't capable of running it at a higher pace, they do have pretty performative cloud-based servers you can subscribe to if you're wanting to make your games possible through that. But of course, there is limits on how much you have on the cloud. You can purchase more space, all of that. But I like Foundry VTT because it's a one-time purchase of $50. Maybe it's gone up since then, but I bought it 5 years ago for $50, and I've bought it as gifts multiple times. And once you get that license key, you really don't have to have anything more than that. But that being said, there's a community of awesome people that are not only making game systems like the Project FU that I'm going to showcase on here, but there's people making all these awesome modules to make the Foundry run with more fluidity. It really helps on how you want to run the game. If you want to make it more crunchy, if you want to make it more theatrical, there's so many awesome modules you can do to kind of give a different presentation. And I don't think there's a single virtual tabletop that even comes close to this. Now, that being said, I've also seen that I guess Fabula Ultima is starting to work with Alchemy, as their Fabula Ultima themselves is working with Alchemy to make this a online VTT for them. But up at this point, I'm going to be running Foundry VTT and supporting the people at Project FU who created this game system for it until the day comes where I'm no longer able to. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and hop in. So I've just logged in through my client, and the first thing you're going to see when you come into Foundry VTT is your game worlds. This is my actual client. I'm using the most up-to-date version 13 build 351. I highly recommend you try to keep up to date relatively if you're running Foundry VTT, but I'm always a little late in the game to update it because anytime, like any other program or anything, when there's patches and updates, it doesn't always go fluidly, and sometimes it might disrupt modules. So I let the developers and the people who make the modules find time to make sure everything has its bells and whistles in order. But usually it's pretty intuitive and pretty easygoing nowadays versus when Foundry first came out. But that being said, we've got 4 games that I'm playing right now. I'm running my D&D 5e Curse of Strahd with my group. This is my homebrew that I've actually not touched in a couple of years, but just keep dreaming that eventually I will get back to it. But then you'll also notice Fabula Ultima and Fabula Ultima Press Start. Now, the difference between these two is Fabula Ultima is basically my personal game that I am running from the continuation of the Press Start module. The Fabula Ultima Press Start world I have here is for my onboarding purposes. For when I run the game for new people, I do a lot of communication with some content creators that they want to learn. You've probably seen some of my actual plays on here, and I keep that at the ready. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to delete this Press Start and show you from scratch how I set the world up. So, and actually, I don't even delete. I'll just do another one. I'll just rename it. But when you create a world, the first thing you need to make sure you have is a game system. So if you look up over here, I have where it's under game worlds. To the middle, we have game systems. Now, I have 4 systems currently installed in Foundry. I have Cyborg and Pirate Borg, which I've yet to run, but I've been fiddling with that. Then I have Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and then I have Fabula Ultima Project FU. And what that is that is an independent group that loves Fabula Ultima so much that they have been working hard and continuously to make a fantastic, fun, automated experience through Foundry VTT to really help people run the game for Fabula Ultima. The game rule system is built in. The interface is cute and kind of goes with the JRPG theme. I really love it. But in most ways of when you bring a system into your Foundry, you'll normally see install system right here. And it'll come up with a lot. There's currently 358 formal systems put into Foundry VTT right now. However, if I try to type in Project FU, you'll notice that nothing comes up. And the reason is this is a informal installation. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get their link from GitHub, and I'm going to provide that link in my description below in the video here. I'm also going to link their Discord channel. They have been awesome support system of how to make sure the thing works. Even on its GitHub, they have a pretty easy showcase of how to set up the game, and I'll let you have that opportunity should you want to dive in further on your own experiences. But that being said, I'm going to just hop up over to their GitHub link and get the JSON file and back up over here. So I have the link. If you don't formally see it in the search, you can see manifest URL, and basically they provide a URL JSON file for you to put in, which I will put in right here, and you would hit install. Now, I've already got the game system installed, so I'm not going to do that. I don't want to cause any complications. But now, with that going in, it should probably take about 2 minutes to install, and at the very least, or at the most there. And then you'll see in the system, Project FU. That's all you got to worry about. The current version is 4.4.1. I've confirmed on their Discord that is the current up to date, at least to this moment of me recording. So I'm going to go ahead and say, great, I've got a game system. So we're going to co-create a game world. Going back to the tab here, we're just going to do create world. And I'm just going to call it Fabula Ultima Voices in the Dungeon to just show you the got. There's the data path where it's going to load the data information for backup purposes and the continuation of any changes made in the system. Now, this is where you choose your system right below here. You have a drop down. As I said earlier, I had my 4 systems. You can see them all listed right here. I'm going to hit Fabula Ultima Project FU. Background image, it's not really a necessity. It can be black, or keep it. Or I think it might be a default D&D image, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, it might be black. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. I normally upload this in the back here, the press start image for just having some sort of visual showcase of the game, but it's also presented to the players, so it gives a little bit more of an entry level, like, oh, we're starting a game for people that are logging into your Foundry setup. I have not actually ever messed with the join page theme. You can also put next session time so people see it, but I don't think that's really crucial. Most people work out of Discord or through other means of communication, and then you can put a world description in that will always be seen at the login, where you can go a showcase to how I run Fabula Ultima on Foundry. All right, create world. Now, as there it is. You can see the Foundry VTT emblem in the back. So if we got an image like the press start, I could put it in there. Otherwise, we're just going to use it as this. But yeah, we've created our world, assigned it with the game system, and we're just going to go ahead and press play this basically to load the world. Now, at the start of the game, you only have you as a game master, and the default password is there is no password. So you just go in and hit join game system or session. All right, I've changed the dimension so you can get a kind of a full screen of what I'm doing when I do the setup here. As we log in, you're going to get a game paused visual here right in the middle as the cog is kind of circulating around. You can activate that or repause by just simply hitting space. Use that to prevent the players from interacting with anything you don't want to interact with at the time. But like I said, this is not me showcasing how to work Foundry VTT. If you are not familiar with this client, it is imperative that you learn it so you can then understand what I'm doing, because otherwise you're going to get frustrated. You're going to say this is stupid and move away. And I promise you, if you just look up those videos of how to do it, it's become so much more intuitive and it's easy to understand, but it still takes a little time for you to play with it. It's not something you just put in your lap and it's fully automated to your liking. You actually kind of customize it to how you want to run games. And that's very important to understand, because if you're not articulate and fluid how to operate this system, this client, your players are going to be lost. You're going to be frustrated, try to show them. So it's very important you have faith in your ability of how to operate this. And then before you even start games in Foundry, you have like a session 0 with your players so they get familiar with the things that matter to them. So that being said, I'm going to go just with a quick rundown of what we're working with the Fabula Ultima Project FU game system on here. So like everything else, when you start up from scratch, you have a blank slate. You have nothing really to work with because you've created nothing. But the system's backlog, its backbone to make the game system work, is installed. And before we get started, I think it's important I just kind of go on a quick rundown on the right side here of these tabs so you understand which ones I'm going to real quick. So at the top, we have the chat messages. This is where you can see here my little chat window. It'll say get started. It's actually showing you how to invite your players. There's stuff about port forwarding if you're hosting locally. They've gotten very intuitive of trying to help the GM run things. But if my players were talking in here for some reason, I'll just say, hello, how's it going? And it'll pop up in the screen and it'll continue to populate. Then below the chat log is the combat encounters. This is where you would attract initiative. Then we have the scenes, which this is the visual, for better words, the tabletop's visual, whether you're using it for D&D purposes and having a battle map and you can put your tokens on and it does all the math and calculations on making scene distances and all that. It's awesome for that. But in Foundry for Fabula Ultima, you don't have a battle map style system. So I usually just I find a backdrop of some sort that is just like a JRPG. You know, when you play Final Fantasy and older games like that, it's just a kind of basic background that will emulate a forest or mountains or a volcano or whatever. And that's the backdrop. And then I will put the sprites on the screen. I use it all for visual. That's it. And then I will use like the journals to project images on the screen if I want people to see things. Because this is the best thing about Foundry for me is the allowance it has for you to put in and show to your players. It's important to me because I feel behind the philosophy, you've got to keep them engaged, and it doesn't matter how great of a storyteller you are, how much you have things prepped on a game. You've got to give some visuals for online, because otherwise they're going to have their second screen. They're going to be continue just scamming through their character sheet, only half listening. It's important to at least give them the idea that you're putting things up, so they're staying attentive to the main screen while you're doing your GMing. But I'm digressing from that. It's more of just my experiences, and I think is one of the most important pieces of advice if you're running online games. But below these scenes, we have actors. This is how you create your players. This is player characters. This is how you create your NPCs, your villains, whatever the case. There's actually another awesome client called Fultimator that is you can log into through a client or download a local executable version and create your own. It's built in to help you create things through a digital aspect instead of everything handwritten on paper. It's a really cool tool. And if I believe I understand this, I've yet to test it. The folks at Project FU have a module now that's going to allow importing from Fultimator, which is awesome for anyone who wants to do a lot of stuff outside of their own time, or on their own time, and then bring it into Foundry without everything having to be independently created from scratch. Which even then, in this, it's not that hard in Fabula Ultima, but I'll probably go through other videos of how to create characters, how to do other things in this content if I get enough interest and views, because a lot of you guys have wanted to see how I do this, but I feel like that itself is other videos that need to be involved if there's enough interest. Now, below actors is items. And this is for you creating items that you can put on the character sheets. They allow automation for, like, let's just say you get a shield of poison resistance. You can make this item. Just going to show you real quick. Call what by name, what it is it armor, all a bunch of stuff. I just now noticed you can't see the drop down of the options on it, so it doesn't matter anyway. But there's a bunch of stuff. There's armor, there's class. Like, you can make your own class. Like, when it says item, it's not just an item that you give to your character sheet, like I just said. It is an item that has different values that you can put into the game. Like, so you can make it as a class. That's where Foundry gets pretty in depth. And if you like that, you can do that. I don't really jump into that. I really like just what is presented for me, the intuitive tools that are being provided by Project FU. But I know there's a lot of people that like to get behind the wheel and create crazy things, where all I do is create items, and I use the back information that they have through their journals on here. Their what's called compendium packs, and I just scroll over whatever condition it's doing, like resistance, and then add it to the character. I know I'm kind of talking all over the place on that, but my point being is that's there. The items are there to make it as in depth as possible, or you can just make it as minimalistic as possible. But below that, we have journals. You can do journals for your own logging. I do that for my journal systems, but you can also leave it open for players. But the one thing that's a limit for Foundry is if you're making a journal for a player specifically, if they're not logged into your Foundry, they're not going to be able to see that. So I always let my players do their own journaling through outside the client. Now, if you're running a Foundry VTT, I think cloud service, everyone always has the ability to log in, and so because it's cloud, they can get in. But I host it locally, so unless I've got my platform, my client open for them to log in, I can't do anything. They can't do anything. So it's worth noting on that. Then we have rollable tables. Once again, this is for people that want to roll like random encounters and really get behind the back end of Foundry. Card stacks, never used it. Macros are used for all kinds of tools to automate things, to apply visual effects on things if you download the right stuff. Like I said, that's a whole different video about operating Foundry, not Project FU. And then the whole point of me going down on this rant is going to playlists. This is one of the first things I do in my games when I start from scratch is I make sure I get some music in, because while I can just play it through other means, I like manipulating the music volume and stuff through Foundry without going to another client. But this is the music you would use to play so your players can hear it. And you've probably heard it in my actual plays if you watch those. And that's how I basically DJ the tone, the tone and theme of whatever I'm projecting in the game, because I think music, especially from JRPGs, is one of the most influential ways of setting a tone, setting a scenario. And Fabula Ultima actually has an awesome original soundtrack that was created. You can get it through DriveThruRPG, and I'm sure through Need Games. I got it when I started getting into Fabula Ultima. And they also have a second original soundtrack they're working on with the success of their Kickstarter from the Volume 1 Bestiary. But to start, we have volume controls here for music environment. You can set different sounds for different, I guess, I'll just call these locations. So you can make a, create a playlist. I'll just show you here. Call it Fabula Ultima. And when it pops up, it says Fabula Ultima. Sequential playback means if it's numerical, it'll go in order. And this is where it's an audio channel. That's what, so when there's music environment interface up here, you can do this, and you can specifically put a sound wave or sound file into one of these channels. So when it plays, you can control the volume independently. So like if you've got some ominous dungeon delving music, but then you also you can make that music, but then you can also upload a file that says like drippy cave sound and put that in the background, so you can change the volume with not everything being manipulated at once. Then there's description. I don't ever use that. I mean, like I said, it's all about the flow of how you run games. I don't use the word laid back, but I am not a type A person where I have to have everything in front of me make sense. Like I'm very abstract in my operations. So, but that being said, you hit update playlist. We'll see up top right here. It says Fabula Ultima. If you look at this little plus symbol right here, this would be create a sound. You would name it whatever you want. Then you would go into your path folder here. This is my actual user data of my Foundry VTT. So this is where like all my assets, my modules, music, all that stuff. There's all kinds of stuff on here, but I'm not doing an individual sound. What I'm actually going to do is do a full import of an entire folder. So what you do is right click here, bulk import sounds, and it's going to go to a file path. I'm going to go to FU music, and I know the entire soundtrack is in that folder. Hit OK, then bulk import, and you'll notice all the songs are now on here. Now, if I hit right here at the top right, you should be able to hear music. If I let this flow, it'll go in order, because I had going down here each song. However, if I want one song continually played, you just hit the loop and it'll continue to play the song over and over and over and over again. Most of the time I hit all of these on loop and then just individually play them when the change of pace and tone comes into play. And I'm actually going to change the song. As peaceful and beautiful this song is, I know it's going to get really loud and orchestral. So we're going to go with a more neutral pace here. And we'll go with just do the dungeon delving. That's a little neutral on its pace here. So now we got music in the background, and that's that. So I've got my soundtrack on there. So if I ever want to change the tone of something and change a scene where it's a different image in the back, I have the fluidity to change that. But I've kind of ranted. I keep trying to say this is not a showcase of Foundry, but it's hard to me just go, just press this, just press that. You're going to get frustrated if I'm not explaining some of the stuff I'm doing. But once again, go to Foundry 2025 YouTube searches and really take what intuitive videos are given there, because this will make a lot more sense if you're not familiar. But going forward, this is going to be for people that have used Foundry and they just want to know where I've got the stuff. So right down below, after the playlist music, we're going to have compendium packs. And you'll see right here, this is where the Project FU comes into play. Not only by the design of their interface and how the game works in Foundry, this is where all of kind of the information you can obtain for either character creation, adding effects, adding equipment. There's other things like GM tools that say Game Master. It has some NPC spells for monsters and stuff like that over here. I am not going to go into that because there's one thing I do want to underline is this is a third-party development for this, and they're putting stuff in from the core rulebook, but not everything, to keep it not a kind of a breach of licensing, to my understanding. So be cautious in using this, because I don't know in the long term how long this is going to be affiliated until Fabula Ultima wants to start formally putting stuff in, but I would not be surprised if they ever tried to have their own official module put in for this. They will probably reach out to Project FU people because they've been phenomenal of making their game so easily navigating in Foundry. But that's also a disclaimer of me saying, don't be jerks. Don't use this Foundry display as your core content and getting rules and stuff. I'm not a big fan of not supporting people, especially local independent, or not local, but independent groups that work very hard for the games. Throw in a little bit of money to support them. If you're holding the content core rulebook, have at it with what is being put on through Foundry from here. If not, do yourself a favor, just get the core rulebook to support these people. But on the compendium, like I said, there's character creation, there's class, heroic skills, all that. I think at this point, before me jumping in, because I don't want to make this a really, really long video, if I see enough interest from the people who would ask to show how I do this, then I will start diving into like character creation and stuff like that using Foundry and how it operates. I want you guys to not be intimidated by this, but like I said, it comes forth with understanding Foundry first. And I could do 10 hours of this trying to just show everything, and I don't want you guys to get lost in it. I like keeping things partitioned and simplified, just like all my other how-to videos. I don't want to just open the core rulebook and do 5 hours talking about it. I think it's important to have it in segments. So that being said, we are going to kind of go beyond this, and I want you to understand now that you see what the whole layout is as far as what options you have to work with when it comes to Project FU in the background. I'm going to just show real quick a quick display of the character setup, not creating a character at all. But what you do is you go to the Actors tab. And I'm going to do a quick pause here. All right, I'm back. So like I said, I'm going to show the interface a bit of the Fabula Ultima Project FU game system on here. And you simply do that by looking at the Actors tab right here. You can see me moving around. You go just to create actor, and basically you have multiple options. I'm going to center here. I'm going to just put the name Go Boo. I don't know. But it has an option as a character. Now, like I said, I don't know if this is for protection reasons. You cannot see the drop down when I showcase this, but there's actually a character, NPC, a party, and stash. I'll be perfectly honest, I have not messed with the party or the stash option, but I just interchange through both character and NPC. So if I want to, I'm going to just go with character for now and hit create actor. And then it puts out this really adorable interface that I absolutely love. I'm going to go ahead. You'll notice the hit points are, for some reason they start in crisis, and I don't know why, but I'm going to go ahead and do this little bed icon, the long rest, give them all their stuff back. So I'm going to just do a rundown and have you understand what this is. Like I said, this could be a whole video on creating, understanding how it works. But once again, I want to see the response to this before I start going into behind the mechanical and technical side of how to really operate this, because my intent as doing Fabula Ultima is to make the game appealing, not just focus on this content, because I still think you're basically having a niche content and online play within a niche game of Fabula Ultima, and I really want to focus on the growth of the game more than the understanding of how to operate Foundry with the game system. But that being said, we're just going to go quick rundown. We've got hit points, mind points, inventory points, which I've done videos on that. There's a default defense on here. There's a place for them to track Fabula points for their character sheet. Then you'll notice there is the 4 attributes down here in the middle. There is Dex, Might, Insight, Willpower. Like I said, if you haven't done a character creation before, check out my random character creation I did, where I did kind of a stream like this and showed how to create a character. But you can use the drop downs here to, once again, you can't see it, but I'm going to choose making the Dex a D10. You now see that because, and this is actually where it's important to understand why this is awesome in the system. If you remember on the character sheet, or the character creation video, Might affects your total hit point pool. Right now, if I have my might of D8, it's at 45. But if I make it make it to a 10, it changes the modification in game, and now you can see the hit points came down and the max hit points have changed to 55 because it's based off of the formula of it's 5 times your dice score plus your level. So right now it's 45, or if it was D8, it's 45 because 8 times 5 is 40, and then I'm level 5 to start, so it would be 45. However, if I make it a D10, we now have 55 because 5 times 10 is 50. My level's 5, it's 55. But that's my point I'm trying to show off, is all of the stuff that happens in this game is all operated through the automation of the character sheet, and it's super cool and super helpful in running the games. Beyond that, you have to the left, this is crisis. These are conditions you can add. If I didn't really go over a video on conditions, but basically what happens is, if let's say someone gets slowed, I can click this and it does the automatic effect of dropping the die size of Dex by 1. You can see this little red arrow. It shows this is a base of 6, even though my die still says 8 as the option. It's letting you know this is a temporary effect when it's also highlighted. You'll also see that visually on the screen, and I will show that later. Then you have group checks, role checks, open checks. A lot of times, this is where I think it's very important to understand this, and then also let your players understand how it works. I do not use the group check option because I have players that use real dice and some people that use Foundry. And this is based upon everyone using Foundry. So if you do have people that are willing to do all that, then it's a great tool because it does all the dice rolling and the math and shows who succeeded and failed and all that. But it's also, Fabula Ultima is not a hard game to understand the math and all that. It's very easy to just let it fly the way you want it to fly. Then below here in the middle here, we have basically these are your resistances, or what do you want to call them, affinities. We have physical, air, bolt, dark, earth, fire, ice, light, poison. And as you can see, all of them are set to normal right now. So if, however, if they took, this is where I don't want to go into the, like, you can go on the back end here, and where you see in the middle here, there's a bunch of little things right here. You can start manipulating. Do they resist? Once again, sorry, you can't see the drop down. I'm going to give this guy immunity to fire. You'll now see, now that it says I am. So in the game, if I made a monster in Foundry that did fire damage, and I targeted that specific person using the digital die, it will calculate the fact it's immune. It will not apply the fire damage. It's very awesome to help me remember that, because in every game you play, it's hard to check on all the resistances your players have and when things change. This is where I really like it, but also, it's up to you to really make sure the players are changing that or keeping them educated how it works on Foundry. Most of my players use Foundry and they understand how to do it. I have one other person that just loves using the die, and I do it for them. It doesn't take long, and we always do a little bit of a reconciliation probably once at the end of the game to make sure that anything's changed, so I can do that for them. But going back to it, so we went over the affinities, then you have their stats, which this is where you put the identity, theme, origin, like you would in any other character sheet. Classes. This is where you would go to in the compendium packs. You go under character creation, you would find classes, and it has, move my screen real quick. You can see there is all the core classes in the game. You can also create stuff if you get behind the hood of Foundry and want to start diving with that, but that's not usually my vibe. I'm using this solely as a intuitive, easy use platform for my friends to play Fabula Ultima online with me. But you can see here, let's just say they are going into Elementalist. I have a rundown of what abilities they have. So like I said, I'm not going to go into a whole character creation thing. You've seen me do the PDF. I will probably do one through Foundry at another time, but I'm just showing quick use of what you can do. So let's say they're taking 2 levels of Elementalist of the 5 levels they need up here. I can give them Elemental Magic and drag it over, I believe, over here to skill. Oh, I also got to put class, sorry. What's that? I think you just drag it actually over here. You can take Elementalist to class. Yeah, there you go. And so now it shows what level it's currently in, and you can kind of do your checks and balances. So at level 1, I gave him Elementalist, I gave it level 1 Elementalist, and then took the skill Elemental Magic. Let's go back to that. So when it says each time you acquire the skill, you learn 1 Elementalist spell. So, and then even forward, this is where the automation's nice. It's for spell breakdown and a list of elemental spells refer to the Elementalist rules. I'll just click that. So this is going to give me all the spells. So let's just say I want Elemental Weapon. That over here. I can then drop that in here. Well, that'll go into the spell tab, but it's now under here. So I now know I have 1 level of Elementalist. I've gotten the skill that gave me the spell Elemental Weapon. But let's say I want to do 1 more level. I just simply hit again. It's now telling me in this class I'm 2. I have 2 of the 5 allotted levels I've invested 2 levels. And right now its class is 2 levels of Elementalist. I'm going to just take another skill in this. I'm going to hit the star. So the checks and balances work. We're 2 for 2. And I'm going to take another spell, Iceberg, drag it over, and it's now there to work with through the automation. Oh, then let's say, cool, we've got 2 levels in automation, or excuse me, on an Elementalist, and we're going to go into Entropy now, or Entropist. I'm going to bring that skill up. Actually, sorry, I forgot. Excuse me. I'm going to drag Entropist in here. It's now saying I have 1 level of Entropist. You notice of 5, 3 is now taken. I've got to still assign, though, an ability from Entropist. So I'm going to go into that, and I'm going to take the skill Absorb NP. Oh, I'm sorry, real quick. If you notice here where it says emphasis +5 MP in Ritualism, if you looked at my video, you know every time you go into the first level of class, you inherit some skill ability or class abilities. For Entropist, it's +5 to your mind points. You've seen that's now gone up to 55 because of the scoring. We're not going to do the math on that, but it's being done because you also got +5 from Elementalist. So, and then the ability to have Ritualism. So, and I know I'm working fast. I'm doing this to show for people that are attuned to Fabula Ultima to a certain extent and understand the rules of Fabula Ultima. And I highly recommend looking at my character video if this is going by too fast for you. But now we have, like I said, of the 5 levels, I have 3 invested, 2 in Elementalist, 1 in Entropist. But the thing is, I have to put a skill in. So let's see here. I'm going to go to the Entropist skills, and then add Absorb MP. So now you see I have 1 level of Absorb MP. This is one ability where you can keep investing. And if you look below here, it says after you suffer damage, you may immediately recover skill level ×2 mind points, which is, if you're wanting to be kind of like a guardian person that takes a lot of damage, this ability is pretty cool to continue to build. And you get, basically every time you take a hit, you get 8 MP back, which is pretty cool. But you'll notice in Foundry here, if I click another skill, you're going to notice there's 4 of 5 of it. It's not doing the checks of balances. I have too much investment versus the level invested on the class. So it does a good job of you being able to see where you have some oversight on. But I'm going to go ahead and do bring up Entropist again one more time. We're going to do Entropic Magic. And this is just like elemental magic. It allows me to pick one spell from the entropy or entropist group. Just like that. I'll do Drain Spirit, so you can get some health back casting spells. You'll notice now under the spell tab, I now have Drain Spirit, and it also says what you can do, the duration, the target, the MP cost, all of that. And then but once again, this is where I said I was going to take another level into Entropist. I put the 4th one on, or the second spell. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I was wrong on that. One's an ability, one's a spell. So I took the Entropic Magic to get that spell, but if you notice, once again, the skill's 4 of 5, but I haven't allotted the level up on the class. I'm going to put plus on Entropist, so now it's 4 of 5, and then I hope you're figuring this out here pretty quickly. I'm just going to do one more for Elementalist, so my 5 levels are achieved. I'm going to do one more magical spell in Elemental Magic. And hey, let's just do Flare. That sounds awesome. And there, your character sheet has the automated skills, the abilities you're leveling up your system. If someone was to cast the spell Iceberg, they just simply go over here. It has it shows the modifiers of everything that's going to be done. So when I click it, it rolls. I have modules that I use to actually do visual rolls normally, but if you look over here on the right, I'm going to move my window. And you'll see the layout of what it was. Iceberg was cast. I rolled a horrible roll of a 5 versus magic defense. But the way the spell works is it is plus... what's the damage it does? It's high roll plus 20, plus 25. So the highest of the 2 rolls was a 3 plus a 25. So it was 28 damage to one individual. But it's doing all the math up here, but if I had tokens in here that I could apply it to, it would automate and remove from the HP pool, which is really awesome for running this game online. So yeah, now you kind of understand the character creation and kind of or character layout on that. And like I said, I think I'm going to do a much more in-depth showcase of how to build a character from scratch. I think that'll be a fun one to do. But now that you see kind of the operations of Project FU on this, I'm going to show you the biggest injection that helps me do a lot more with what I'm doing. And because some people were asking questions about the images I was using, the sprites, that's because I used one particular module, and that is the Fabula Ultima Press Start module. Someone who has gone out of their way to make their own injected module that really automates and injects the entire series of the Press Start module into Foundry using Project FU. So I'm going to jump into that and show you how we do that. Okay, as I said with the Fabula Ultima Press Start module, that is not only the module itself, the game module. What Foundry VTT uses is called modules. They're injections that you can put into the game system to help with automation, have cool visual effects, all kinds of things. And like I said, someone went out of the way to inject a very intuitive and easy use way of running Press Start through Foundry. And the way you obtain that, I'm going to go ahead and put a link to the GitHub as well for that. But also 100% another disclaimer. Please support these people. Do not use this stuff that I'm linking as free content to work the game around. Now, I think the Fabula Ultima Press Start is almost pretty much the full book, but that's not a very large book, and you don't learn the game through that. The core rule book is a very referenced item in the Project FU, but it's not the entirety, so you're going to miss out on a lot. So it's important to have these books either way. But that being said, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to actually leave to show you how to obtain this. I'm going to leave the game system real quick. Go back to setup. And we're back at my worlds. And I showed you at the beginning of the video as we created the world, how I got the game system by installing the system and putting the json file that I'll be providing in the link of my description. And then it works the same way with add-on modules. Now, there's a lot of awesome modules that you can just install and find search through their database. Like I can't even keep up to what there is. Things keep getting added and changed all the time, but there's a lot of cool stuff that is just neutral to any game system that you can apply. And then there are game system specifics. But since, like I said, this is not official content, once again, you're just going to find that GitHub link that I have in the description. You will put it in here, hit the paste the URL and hit install. Once it installs, you'll see in my library of all my modules here, it's right here, Fabula Ultima press start. So now you got and the green means this is currently up to date and it's working fluidly with the game system. So we're going to go back into the game. Fabula Ultima voices in the dungeon. So, like I said, the library now has the Fabula Ultima press start in here. But what you have to still do in this game, and like I said, this is another Foundry tutorial that I'm only going to briefly go over, but I recommend you looking at a more official Foundry content to do it. What you do is you go to the settings tool, and you have multiple options here. You have manage modules. So this is my list of all those library you saw here. I'm going to go ahead and just add a few of these modules, and it's going to really bring to life of my way of playing the game. First and foremost, I am going to take Dice So Nice. This is one of my favorite modules. It gives physical dice to the roll for you. So when you roll, you see it on the VTT. Then you see Dice Tray. What it's going to do is in the chat bar down below, it's going to add a quick reference interface. If you need to roll some quick die, you can just click it and roll that. Then you have Fabula Ultima press start. This was the big meat and potatoes I was talking about. We'll start here in a second. A lot of this other stuff doesn't really matter. Oh, I also use global progress clocks. So when you do clocks in the game, that's great to have. All this other stuff is for other games. Theater inserts. This is my other one to activate. And of course, when I clicked it, it says it has dependencies. So it has these other modules. I go ahead and say activate. So it'll do that for me. That's it. That is literally all I use for at least for now in Fabula Ultima. So what I'm going to do is hit save module settings, and it's going to refresh the game client, or it's going to ask to. We'll get a pause. It'll do a refresh. Now it's telling me, hey, Dice So Nice, your 3D dice is ready. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that. I'm going to set up my 3D dice setting. You could spend an hour, all my players, when we start a new campaign, spend an hour setting up their custom dice. I'm just going to make, yes, that. So now when I roll something, like I'm going to use Gobu here, I'll use a spell, Iceberg again. It rolls the die on screen. It's just a nice little visual thing that my players love. It makes it feel more authentic instead of just watching, hearing the dice roll and just seeing a result. Then down below, if you remember, I did the dice tray. This is now where I was talking about in the chat down the bottom right. You can see the options of die. And let's say if I said, hey, roll a D10 and roll a D8, I can click and click and then hit roll. And it'll do it for me. So that's a nice little quick reference setup for my players and me if I just need to do a quick roll. Then there is the press start module. Now, what this does is, like I said, it injects multiple things. When you saw I first started going through this, like the scenes, oh, I forgot I got to load that up. So rewind real quick. You go to the compendiums. You can now see the press start right here. Trying to remember how all this, oh, here it is. You just go to press start here with this little items tab. It says press start, and then I put import adventure. So what it says right here, if you look down here, it says there's 13 actors, 15 items, 7 journal entries, 16 scenes, 1 playlist, and 8 folders. So I'm going to go ahead and hit import adventure. It's going to take a second. It might reboot. Nope, doesn't seem to. So now when I go to scenes, you can see up here there's a folder scenes. There is all of the scenes. Cool, and they've updated some stuff too since the last time. So if you want to start the game before playing, you can go to activate the scene. Oh, interesting. Sorry, that's new to me. I'm going to kill this music here real quick. So they went ahead and added new music to the scenes itself, so you don't even have to import the file. But I'd still import my music, but it's cool they did that. Like I said, things change with the successes of these things so quickly. It's hard for me to keep up on. But so anyway, back to the scenes. We have literally like the first scene is this guy of Denova where you're introducing the characters to the players and who they're representing. You can activate over that. It's now got a little visual for them to see. We've got these cute little sprite-based tokens. If they were assigned to players, I can tell this music's a little loud. But I'm digging this. I don't know who came up with this music. But this is where the players instead, you can now, like, let's say someone was playing Edgar the Inventor. We have a complete character sheet that's already automated for the game. So this is why it's awesome. If you're running Press Start for the first time, really study what is being provided to you in Foundry, but all the character sheets are automated for this. So if the player you tell Edgar to do a roll check in game, you can have him hit roll check and basically say, let's say dexterity. Or I'm gonna say dexterity insight. There's dex, insight. You can even tell them what difficulty you want it to be. If they say, I'm gonna make it easy, but the sheep, which is a 7. You don't have to. I always already tell them, but they can do it if they want. And then when they do a roll check, you'll see the die and the result. I only rolled a 6, the difficulty 7. It says down here it was a failure. So like I said, once everything is injected into Foundry through this module, it's doing a lot of the hard work. And like I said, in Fabula Ultima, there's not a lot of hard work on it, but nonetheless, you can see this is a fully optimized, created character sheet. It's got its the identity, the theme, the origin. If you go to the biography tab, which I believe is this little note with a pencil, it has a little bit of the information about the character that you would find in the Press Start book. So this thing is really designed to do the whole thing. And I'm not going to show everything because if people are wanting to learn or experience this the first time, I don't want them to be denied the adventure. But you can see for yourself under, like I said, it goes multiple things. They have, and this is a different thing. They have 2 ways of doing this. So they have a scene that says like 2 arms and then 5th. That's because they're adding the 5th person Mako. He wasn't originally in the Press Start. He was an addition, so there was a 5th player option. That's a setting you got to change in Foundry. I'm not going to get into that. If you move the token, it changes the direction they go. I don't really care for that, but that's better if you're playing like D&D with top-down character images. But what is worth noticing, though, you also have, so you have 2 arms, and then you have 2 arms classic. So if we go to 2 arms, you see this is a more top-down grid game. I don't think that's really my style because you're not using the grid like you would in other traditional TTRPGs. Change this music again. But when it would go into combat, you would see everything goes back and forth. And actually, yeah, I'll use that as an option real quick. I'm going to highlight everyone and then right click, and you'll see on where I'm highlighting, there's a little says toggle combat. When I do that, you're going to go over the initiative. I forgot that there is a module that will do like hit point pools and stuff like that, like a traditional JRPG. I don't really mess with it because the combat goes too quick for me to really look at that. But you'll see now on the right, they have both the player side and the opponent side, and you can begin the encounter. And like I said, where you roll initiative. You basically roll an insight dex group check against the highest creature's initiative difficulty. If the players win, you select allies, or you can select opponents. We'll say the allies win. I go into combat. There it goes. Now it brings this up for a minute, whatever. Like I said, that's not important to me. But it's the allies first. So now this is where I would ask, who's going to make their first move. They'll go through the character, do their thing, maybe do damage, may buff someone. Let's just say it was Cassandra. They did something. I would click Cassandra, and then hit this little play thing to expend her turn. She is now no longer, you'll notice this is up, it's a grayed out. So we now know in this round she isn't there anymore to be used. And then I will go to the Elonian Trooper right here. And if you go over the initiative track, it'll highlight who it is. So I'm gonna actually go with the Hexai right here. Say they do something in the round. Once again, hit play. So you can see, you can track back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I'm not going to go into the depths of initiative on this, but you can see how easy it is to maneuver. Then, as far as running the game itself on here, this is where you, like I said, you have items, journals. There's the GM's notes, the story. This is the entire press start module setup. It tells you scene by scene what you're reading, what to recommend, like everything you go to. You don't even need the book, but also if I'm not mistaken, the press start module is still free from Fabula Ultima, so this is nothing that's being shown that you can't already get for free, if I'm not mistaken. But it goes through the entire adventure. And then the final thing I wanted to say is I have the module theater inserts, and I've noticed they've changed a few things in the character creation. So like when I click Levine, they went straight with just the image of their little sprite character, which they're cute. But when I do my game, I think I use my PDF and basically, screen printed, made transparent images and made that the image, so they are visual. But what you do as theater insert this is one of the biggest things I do in all my games now. This is one of my favorite modules. If you're doing like role playing and stuff like that, you can go over the token here, or bring up the token, go up top here to add to stage. You'll notice bottom right here, there's a little stage thing. And when I click this, I can start, doing something a little more ominous, talking about how like a dark entity starts stepping in from the corridor. You hear the sounds of armor, plated footwork, and the dragging of a cloak. And then I will click her in. Now, of course, I'm blocking it. Hold on. Interesting, they changed it up. Give me 1 second. Oh, well, I think this is a perfect example of, like I said, I think this module has been updated, and it may have not been updated with the other module of the inserts, because in my older one, I'll actually show you that real quick. I'm going to leave my game. And so this is pretty much the layout of how I run Fabula Ultima. Like, without me going to depths every single thing, that was not the intent of this video. It was just kind of giving a quick tour of how I operate. But we're going to go ahead and leave this game. And I'm going to go to my other press start that I know has not, I'm pretty sure hasn't been up to date. Well, it's asking me to migrate now, so we'll see here. But it's going to ask for a backup in case anything goes wrong. But go into password for that. So this is one of my scenes this is when I was using when I was doing one of my other videos. I was showing this and using it as a example. But let's bring up some player characters here. So I'm going to try seeing if I can add her to the stage here. Well, yeah, see, I don't know what this is. I think it's an older version, but this is where the theater insert's really cool. I like this because you can bring in other people, and I do it for like my villains and stuff when there's conversations during villain scenes, and it just adds a nice little theatrical injection. So let's just say Blair or Claremont runs across, and these are normally player characters. I'm using them as NPCs for now. I'm also going to add Levine Fulbright to stage. And you can see down, oh, move me out of the way here. It's really small down here, but you can see where it's highlighted, these people on stage. I'm going to add Levine now to it. So now on both these screens, I've got them doing stuff. And what's also great about this is I can, if I wanted to even make it more like a JRPG, I could do something like, you can see where she's talking, and I could type that out, and then it comes in like a JRPG. I knew you would come. Like it's fun little injections like that that I like to have fun playing with, and I recommend you trying. Now, of course, with the most recent update, it looks like they're still working on that, but it'll probably find its way pretty quickly. So yeah, so we're going to do a little wrap up here, and like I said, I know I was a little all over the place, but that was by intent. It was to make sure I was showing this game as much as possible without going behind the hood on everything, because that's not the intent. But either way, we're going to wrap this up real quick and see what you think. So if you're still with me at the end here, I appreciate you going through the entire layout. I know you had to waddle through a bunch of ums and stutters and me saying that being said probably 40 times. That's the way my brain works. So I hope that was enough. You could tolerate that. But I hope I gave enough of a showcase to kind of understand how this operates and how fun it can be. Now, I know I was a lot of back and forth trying to make things work, and that's always the complexities of working with Foundry and making sure things are up to date. To be perfectly honest, I wasn't aware the theater insert wasn't working on the new update yet. As you saw in my other version, it is still working fine, but I'm pretty sure that'll be changed pretty quickly. But you also saw how awesome and easy the blank slate of Fabula Ultima, and I was just showing kind of the bones in the back of it, changes with that injection of the module press start. So that's a good entry point of having everything set up for a game. But then once you start learning more with Project FU and how awesome it can be, and then also there's recommended modules that to make things even easier through their Discord, you can find a lot of fluidity and a way to operate at a pace you like in running the game. So that being said, I've put probably almost an hour of talking into this, and with everything being explained, there's so much more to it. So once again, if you like these videos, like, subscribe to my channel, and please give me your input on this video, because there's a lot of people asking about the VTT showcase I've done on my actual play and all that. And I want to see how many people are sincerely interested on top of me just doing Fabula Ultima content. So until then, I hope you had a good day. I hope you have a good night, and let's play some more Fabula Ultima.